There is a moment before every great story when no one believes it will happen. For most players, that moment passes with a bad trial, an injury, or a coach's doubt. For this boy, it happened in a doctor's office under fluorescent lights with a needle in his hand long before anyone knew his name. This is not a story about a superstar. This is a story about a child who was told his body might stop him, and the years it took to prove that wrong. Rosario, a city that has given the world poets, revolutionaries, and footballers. In the streets here, the ball is not a toy. It is a language every child learns before they can read. He was small for his age, smaller than his brothers, smaller than the boys he played against, but on the pitch, size seemed to disappear. He moved like the ball was tied to his ankle with an invisible thread. His family noticed it first, not the talent, but the pattern. Every year, his friends grew taller. He did not. By the age of 8, the gap was impossible to ignore. The diagnosis came quietly, without drama, the way most things that define a life often do: a growth hormone deficiency. His body was not producing enough hormone to grow at a normal rate. The treatment existed, but it was expensive. Hundreds of dollars every month for years, in a country facing economic crisis, for a family of modest means. It wasn't just a medical problem, it was an impossible math. Before the world called him a genius, other children called him something else. Enano, the dwarf. The name followed him onto buses, into locker rooms, across schoolyards. Some laughed without cruelty, the careless laughter of children who don't yet understand what words can do. Others, meant to wound, he rarely answered back. Those who knew him remember a quiet boy, a boy who let the ball speak for him, because words were a battle he was tired of fighting. What does it do to a child to be laughed at for the one thing he cannot control? Some children shrink from it, others turn it into fuel. He would spend the rest of his life proving, silently, that the joke was wrong. Every night, for years, there was a needle. His father learned to give the injections himself, to save money, to make it feel less like a hospital and more like home. It became routine. It became normal. It became, in its own way, a discipline. The first discipline of a career built almost entirely on discipline, and on the pitch, none of it mattered. The needles, the whispers, the height charts pinned to a doctor's wall, all of it disappeared. The moment the ball touched his foot, by the time he was 11, the treatment had become unaffordable. His childhood club could not cover it. Argentine football, for all its love of the game, could not find a way to save its own prodigy. So his father did what desperate love does. He took his son across an ocean, to a country that had never seen him play, searching for a club willing to gamble on a boy the doctors believed might never grow past 5 feet tall. Barcelona's youth scouts watched him. For only a few minutes, what they saw defied logic. A body still years from finishing its growth, moving with balance, vision, and imagination that belonged to no age bracket at all, legend says. The club's sporting director wrote the terms of his first contract on a paper napkin, a promise made faster than the paperwork could catch up, whether every detail is true or not. The message was someone, finally, believed in him. Barcelona agreed to pay for his treatment. For the first time, the medicine that kept his body growing was no longer a burden his family carried alone. It became an investment in a boy the club believed could become extraordinary, but was not arriving home. He was a stranger in a new country, separated from his family, still smaller than his teammates, still the outsider. Some nights, he simply stopped speaking. The silence of a boy carrying more than his body could easily hold, even as his talent became undeniable. The doubt never truly disappeared. Some coaches worried the game would become too physical. Some scouts dismissed him as a curiosity, brilliant among children, but unproven against men. He was underestimated so often by so many that it became another shadow following him. When he reached the first team, the whispers changed, but they never stopped. He is talented, but too fragile, too small, too easy to knock down. And yes, there were falls. Defenders twice his size treated him like a problem to be removed. He got knocked down again and again and again. Each time, he stood back up, not because he was fearless, but because quitting was never an option. There is a particular kind of doubt that follows a person for life. When it begins in childhood for him, it started with a growth chart in a doctor's office. Long before he kicked his first professional ball, the answer to every doubt was never spoken. It was played season after season. The boy once measured in centimeters became a player measured in trophies, in records, in moments that made the greatest professionals stop and simply watch. The low center of gravity that coaches once feared became his greatest weapon. The small frame became impossible to dispossess because it moved. Before the tackle ever arrived, he became one of the most decorated players football has ever known. League titles, Champions League triumphs, Ballon d'Or awards, records that reshaped the game, and finally, the prize that had escaped him for so long, the World Cup, lifted at last on football's biggest stage. But ask the people who know him best what his greatest victory was, and many won't mention the trophies. They remember the boy who was told his body might stop him and who built one of the greatest careers football has ever seen. The height chart in that doctor's office could measure centimeters. It could never measure destiny. Today, in football academies around the world, there are small boys who move just like he once did, underestimated, sometimes mocked, quietly believing in something the adults around them cannot yet see. Some coaches now show those children his photograph, not the trophies, not the records, just the picture of a small, ordinary-looking boy exactly like them. His story does not tell children that size does not matter. It tells them something far more powerful. The body you are given is only the beginning of the story, never the end. He was once the smallest player. On every pitch he stepped onto, he became one of the biggest figures the game has ever known, not despite the smallest years of his life, but in many ways because of them.